Hey guys, thanks for stopping back in. Today we're going to review the 575 GTC Ferrari from Kyosho. But please, I'm going to have some commentary after the review that's going to touch on inflation and the crazy prices of these models. Today we're reviewing the Kyosho 575 GTC Evoluzione. This model I purchased about a month ago. It was the model that I previewed very briefly in a previous video when I was playing the game What's in the Box. We'll be doing it again soon. And well, let's just get right into it. And here we are. The Kyosho Ferrari 575 GTC Evoluzione. The overall shape is very accurate to the real thing. This is a metal, fully opening die-cast model. This model is over 10 years old. As you can see, this is what we would call a plain body version. So this is without any sponsorship livery on the race car, which in this case, I think this is the better choice out of the ones that are available through Kyosho. Just something really neat about this particular model, which I don't always prefer plain body versions. Some people want all their race cars to be in plain body versions. It depends on what model it is. But this particular one, I think it looks great without any livery on it. It almost looks like a car, almost, that you could drive on the street and would just look like it had a really, really mean looking body kit on it. And of course, a enormous, ridiculous wing. Alright, so start with the wheels. As you can see, the tires themselves are sized differently, just like the real thing. You'd be surprised how many companies skip that step and pretty much have the front mimic the back. So again, Kyosho took their time and made sure that they made this as accurate as possible. The brake rotors are steel, and again, the photo etched parts that they used are really good. These look like rotors that have never actually been used before, so they would shine like that, so that it is accurate. The Brembos, the lettering on the calipers is fairly clear. The Brembo gold that's used is accurate for the period. The heat shield, and you see that exhaust tip there. It feels like it's metal. It definitely has a nice little polished steel look to it, so that's pretty nice. Not sure what these are. I don't know if it was just to break up the yellow, but I think it looks great. But it's not a vent, and it is like that on the real thing as well, just to let you know. This here is a vent, and it's a true vent, so it does actually have perforations, so it is functional. And then, of course, you have these two vents here, which are actual holes. So, again, very nice detail. Since we're in the back, we might as well continue. The tail lights, as you can see, are aligned perfectly. There's no issue there. The colors are accurate to the real deal. The Ferrari logo on here is a decal. I'm not sure if there was a decal on the actual thing as opposed to an actual plate, but it doesn't look bad. Just something I noticed. You have your perforated grille here as well. Moving on to the front. This is the front of this model or car is definitely my favorite part about it. The blacked out vents, it just looks mean. I really do like that, and you have this snorkel here. The blacked out lights. Again, Ferrari obviously knows how to style cars, and that includes their race cars, and this is by no means an exception to that. The diffuser and the splitter up front are fiberglass, so this is plain colored, and the real car actually is fiberglass. It is not a carbon fiber, which makes sense. This was a early 2000s race car, and that was before carbon fiber became the rage and very commonplace on race cars. The tow hook is plastic, but it looks like it's metal, so that's fine. And let's open this thing up. Use my handy dandy auto art tool. As you can see, there we go. See the vent, or yep, on the front is a true vent, so it is perforated. You can see right through it. Has a nice little mesh grill there. Of course, the vents are accurate as well. When this is placed on the car, it's really cool. It gives you a sneak peek of the engine. I'm just going to remove the back is removable as well. And in the trunk, you have all the pertinent things that you would need for a race car. So you have your canister back there and all the pertinent hoses. So that's pretty darn accurate as well. Look at that roll cage. Looks like metal to me. It's really nice. Let's open the doors. One thing I want to point out about the roll cage, and I can show you examples of other models that also have roll cages. Typically, because this is plastic, there's usually a mold line that goes across that you would see. You know, some model companies try to hide it by putting it in the back somewhere, but it's on both sides, so it's kind of hard to hide it. On this Kyosho, you don't see that at all. And I point it out because personally, when I see that line there, it just takes all the realism out of it for me, as far as, you know, it being accurate. But you don't see any of that here. The other thing that I want to point out is all the equipment in the interior. As you can see, they made sure they had all the correct hoses and lines and power lines, and they're not all monochrome black. They have varying colors to them. The electronics have labels. So again, just their attempt to make this as accurate as possible. Moving on to the other side. Steering wheel, again, not a monochrome color. They really look to capture as much as possible. One thing I'd really like to point out is the air vents for the air conditioning. The vents are perforated and they have depth to them. You see that? And they're not all facing or turned in the same direction. It's random, which again, nice taste and realism by Kyosho for doing that. The seats, you can see there's a 6-point harness there. You have your metal here, you have your buckles. It's not just laid out, it actually has the actual belt wrapped around the buckle, which is really accurate. And these are obviously cloth. The seat itself, again, great choice in textures. It looks like a soft I don't know if I want to call it leather because the actual seat wouldn't be leather, it'd be a synthetic material. But again, it looks soft. It's not, of course. But again, great choice in texture. You got your 3 pedals down there, your clutch, your brake, and your accelerator, of course. And you also have this line, this coil going right to the steering wheel, which again is very accurate. You wouldn't see that in a lot of today's models, I don't believe. It's just very well done. Something I didn't touch on as I close this back up is the overall paint. The paint on this model is very good. It's evenly laid. There is a little paint rash, which is notorious on zinc metal die cast, but you really have to put it in a certain light to see it. And it's on the hood, but you probably won't be able to see it here because it's not really that bad at all. And that is fixable because it's not that bad. Just give you one more go around and I'll give you my conclusions. Well, I hope you enjoyed the review of the Kyosho Ferrari 575 GTC Evoluzione. Just from our recent events, we know that everything is going up and up as far as prices go. Our economy in the U.S. is borderline either at or is going to be at a depression. Model prices started rising before all of this mess with our current society across the world. You know, with all the wars, with the wars in Ukraine and all the other craziness that's been going on, our model prices, again, they started rising before all this stuff happened. I bring this up for this reason. Some of us feel displaced out of this hobby because of the high prices, and we're not buying because we just can't. I mean, things are just really tight right now. I don't have the exact numbers. It's something that it's probably somebody, not me, can do the research and see exactly how the market for collecting actually is going since this has happened. I'm very sure it's slowed down some. But that's that balancing act that companies, not just model companies, any company has to take, especially when we're talking about objects that are more or less a hobby. So these are luxury things, things that we don't need. They're not necessity. But we still want them, we still like to collect because it is our hobby. Well, the question is how do you balance it out? How do you know, because of everything that's been going on, that you're actually getting a really good price for your model versus just being gouged? Well, it takes a lot of research and time and things like that to figure that out. What does this have to do with the car I'm showing you today? It has to do with simply this. I've noticed throughout all my years of collecting, and I don't just collect models, by the way. There's cars, there's watches, and some other stuff. My point being is that it's all the same when it comes to collectibles. When you do have a market that is currently in a uproar right now with all the uncertainty that's going on, your best bet is to look for the older stuff and to some extent some of the newer stuff. So with the older stuff being models that have been around for 10 years, 20 years, those models, yes, if they are highly sought after models, those prices are going to be higher. But what you're going to find is you're going to find certain people who have these priceless things. They are going to want to sell. They want to sell because maybe they made a bad investment, maybe they lost their job, who knows what it is. I'm not suggesting we take advantage of folks like this. You're buying because they are putting the price out there for it, for whatever it is. So no, this is not a tutorial on how to take advantage of somebody who is desperately trying to sell or liquidate their models because of hard times. What I'm saying is we're actually doing them a favor. As we know, especially if you put your models on eBay, for example, most people, not all, if they're doing the bidding system or the set price system, they're looking for a higher price, obviously. They're looking to maximize the most they can get out of the model. In these recessionary times, they're looking for something reasonable. So my point being is that when the economy is flush with money and people have plenty of money to spend, they're not going to think twice for something they really want. They're going to pay the top price for it and be done with it because they figure it's going to appraise in value anyway. Just like your residential homes. In an inflationary market, it's a little bit different. You have more room to actually negotiate a price that's reasonable for both the buyer and the seller. So there is more of a negotiation going on. That goes for eBay. That goes for private seller forums as well. Facebook Marketplace is a great example. You could communicate with these sellers and actually propose your price. And because again, if you have the funds to do this, if you have the funds to buy stuff now, it's a really great time because again, you are going to get better deals. You just are. Selling on the other side, well, again, the opposite works. Right now, you're not going to have as many people out there looking for what you have to sell because we don't have the money for it. But those select few that do, opportunity. So basically what I'm saying is it's a win-win for both parties. So just to reiterate, I'm not suggesting that we go out there and lowball people to try to take advantage of their misfortune. That is not what I'm suggesting at all. What I'm saying is, like anything else, the whole point in why, I'm talking U.S. economy, can't speak for other economies, why interest rates rise is to slow down a very hot economy, which means that there's too much money that's in the system right now. In other words, we have too much money to spend and we're spending it because we have it to spend and we're accumulating too much stuff. And the only way to slow that down is to increase interest rates. Interest rates affect just about everything, which means that it's going to cost more for suppliers to buy supplies, all right, or to sell supplies. It's going to be harder for the end user, and that includes any model company when they're buying materials. It's going to cost them a little bit more. That being the case, opportunities, as I mentioned before, would be for the buyer who's looking to buy at a reasonable price because the economy is now being slowed down. So you can't ask for the ridiculous prices. I'm going to give you one more example. And I love using this example because, well, it's one of my favorite things to deal with, which is real estate. Before, and we're talking 6 months ago, first 6 months ago, the housing increased dramatically as far as values and what people are willing to pay, to the extent that you could place a house in the market and get more than what you actually placed as far as the price. It sounds ridiculous, but if you are familiar with this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Try doing that now. There's more room for negotiation because there's, again, not as many buyers. Thus, when we talk about models, there's not as many buyers. So it's going to give you a more reasonable price. Now back to the Ferrari 575 GTC Evoluzione and why I think it makes sense to look for things like this. This model is by Kyosho and the detail on it is outstanding. It's one of the best detailed race cars that I have in my collection. And it's not something that was new. It was done over 10 years ago. I purchased this model for $120 US. Now, it's not the most popular Kyosho model because, well, race cars in general, unless it's some historical significance, just not as popular as the exotic cars that Auto Art produces. They're just not. But again, the 575 GTC is just an example of a model that I've seen in, again, before 6 months ago, $300, $400, especially the red plain body version. Especially the red plain body version. The yellow one, yeah, it would probably be $50 to $100 less. 125, 120 bucks roughly for this model. So bargains are out there. Again, I'm not suggesting that you take advantage of folks. It's not what I'm suggesting at all. What I'm saying is that you now can find things at a more reasonable price. And by the way, it's also going to slow those retailers down from those ridiculous prices they're asking for new models. So just pay attention to that. And, you know, comment later on in the next video or two as time goes by, and let us know about those great opportunities that you found, and how you're able to get a Grail model at a more reasonable price just because of the way things are. Please like and subscribe. That is the only way I'm going to know that you're enjoying these videos. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time.